From revolutionizing the genre of co-op horror games as we know it, to giving players the ability to escape the zero-test experiments during the Cold War, ahead of the Outlast trial's anticipated release, here's everything fans need to know. Starting with the fact that this project could avoid all previous downfalls of co-op horror games. Yes, that is a pretty bold claim, but hear me out. It's fair to say that some fans are concerned about how the debut of special skills and the new multiplayer mode will affect gameplay, especially since it's not hard to think back to the 2015 game Alone in the Dark, Illumination. But if you're having trouble remembering the name, you're not the only one. Illumination was a 4-player co-op horror game similar to the trial. Players work together to both survive and solve a mystery. While this game's first version received a lot of great reviews, Illumination didn't live up to its own standards, and fans now feel that those same mistakes may repeat themselves. These included the gameplay feeling way too repetitive at times, and the storyline lacking any sort of engagement. It was kind of obvious that the creators might have spent a bit too much time on the co-op aspect, so the upcoming project has the opportunity to rectify that issue by developing an engaging story players can appreciate while working with others. Because while the ability to work with 3 other people is extremely exciting, when it's the only hook in the game, the whole thing falls short. Whether or not the creators can offer a balanced dynamic this time, we'll have to wait and see. Still, what we know so far of the central backstory does seem insanely thrilling. How else would you describe playing as the first test subject for the Outlast world? Come on! We actually get to be a major factor in the conflict and determine how everything started, which means Trials will be a prequel to Outlast and Outlast 2.
Darn.
So, let's talk about the plot. Players take part as the infamous test subjects during a risky experiment in the dangerous Cold War era. Now, although it's still a mystery how the plot will affect the gameplay, it's been said that players can engage with enemies by using a variety of special abilities. Yup, that's right. This will be a complete change from the usual game mechanics for non-combat, but that just means we get a much more immersive experience, especially since the test subjects can't simply move around whenever they want. You're kind of forced to be part of everything, and that means taking part in many experiments, whilst avoiding monsters, of course. Fun, right? But don't worry, the Outlast horror elements will still be just as effective, in part because players must constantly be on the move. Just imagine, you'll be taking inspo from The Last of Us, but this time it's the humans making the mutations. Sick! Going with that, it'll be interesting to see how an episodic layout keeps that sense of ongoing threat and despair, which with the updates we've received so far, the player's skills and inventory changes are certainly going to help with that. Seriously, you'll need to be sneaky and cunning if you want to survive, especially since at many moments that might be the only tactic available for the test subjects. And that's just another reason the horror in this game is much more in line with American Chainsaw. In the words of the first batch of beta players, this game's intensity is a lot like that of a Silent Hill game, because even when you can't hear the screams, the Outlast trials commit to the idea with excellent sound and level design, making sure that players are always immersed in an eerie sense of something's going to happen, which is why it's crucial that players only use their night vision goggles when necessary, because of course the goggles run out of power very easily and can only be charged with a limited amount of resources. Isn't that fantastic? Especially because open lighting will be both a blessing and a curse, as players can only hide in shadowy places. And all of these rules only say that players need to make sure they're using stealth to their advantage. It'll be your greatest strength, and with only 3 inventory spots available, it may be the only option. Players will need to constantly be aware of how they're using these spots, because the threats are always lurking, and possibly coming from very unexpected places, cause there is a pretty good chance that not everyone on your team is an ally. Yes, the game can be played in single player mode, but if there's a whole team involved, then there are times when everyone is separated and asked to make their own choices. Some of them are expected to put the team against each other, which will only add to the survival aspect of the story, especially since the main character Regent is taking part in mental and physical challenges that are made to test whether he can best the others. See, this game, as said by co-founder Felipe Morin, will be more like a TV series compared to the previous two installments, and that means the main player's journey to freedom will be a long one. In the same statement, Morin let slip that the game wants people to fight for their right to be alive. I don't know about you, but that statement gives me major Hunger Games vibes. So, when beta players shared their experiences and said that the game includes physical gore and psychological stress, they weren't kidding. But that's not all. The execs might not have released a lot about the storyline of the game, but before the most recent trailer was released, some BTS footage for the game came out in 2022, titled Trial 4 Animation. The sneak peek gave us an exciting preview of what went into this game. Red Barrel provided the fascinating video, and now, while many fans probably would have preferred to see some gameplay or a set release date, this allowed them not to be left completely in the dark. It also showed many of the actors dressed in mocap suits, some of who appeared to be acting out pretty nasty death scenes. But in this world, we wouldn't expect anything less, right? The creators were also sitting back closely, commenting on in-progress animations that seemed to completely transform what was happening in real time. What's more is that the video also introduced Mr. Noakes, who will play as an NPC from whom players can purchase upgrades. Though this breadcrumb might not be the most intriguing update we've had so far, we've also been gifted some pretty detailed scenes of the game for the whole fandom. And when I say that these pictures give us so much more about what's in store, that's not an understatement. The photos revealed the multiple gruesome settings we've been promised, starting with the first image, which showed security gates and message monitors. Now, if you've got a sharp eye, you'll notice that these are lit in the same murky green and dim lighting of the criminal asylum from the first game. So, whether or not this was a tiny Easter egg hinting where we're going to start in the game, or just a connection within the world, we'll soon find out on May 18th when the game is scheduled to release. But that isn't all. The second image was filled with religious notes and crosses, in between a pretty grim scene, which isn't unfamiliar territory for the Outlast series, as similar sights were seen in Outlast 2's religious cult setting. So, maybe the developers are promising that while this game steps away from the standard gameplay of the universe, it will tie into the story we've all loved for the past decade. And that's only assured by the fact that much of the main setting will take place in the Murkoff Corporation. For those of us that have followed the story for a while, we might already be familiar with the Corp, but now the curtains are finally going to be lifted as the players find themselves in the operating room of this famous and hellish place. Exactly what's going to happen afterwards and why, we'll have to wait and find out. Until then, that's everything you need to know about the anticipated game Outlast: The Trials. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.